Greetings and welcome to a Alpha Impressions video. Now, over the last weekend, I was given access to the Master X Master Alpha Weekend, courtesy of NCSoft, and I am here to tell you of my first impressions, what I thought about the game, what I experienced, with a lot of Be Real in the background to show you, hopefully, what I'm talking about, and just show you pretty much how it plays, because I, for one, was having a lot of fun with the game, because it was something I was actually looking for that I did not know I was looking for. So anyway, let's get to it. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the main mechanics of the game. Now, the game looks like a general MOBA, but it's not. It's actually more similar to a Diablo-style hack and slash, shoot 'em up-ish. Except the difference is it handles like an MMO in that you move around with the W, A, S, and D keys, and then your character is always pointing at where your mouse is. You press right click to fire your primary weapon. Now your primary weapon on every single character has what is called a heat meter. If it fills up, you will not be able to use your primary weapon for 2 whole seconds. However, you do get a warning 4 shots before the weapon overheats, and if you stop shooting before it overheats, it will only take 0.75 seconds for it to cool down instead of the entire 2 whole seconds. Now the other thing is that it's got very limited skills. However, you can always unlock more skills for the characters, even though it's really only 4 actual active skills, then a passive, a movement option, which is usually a dodge of some sort, and an ultimate, obviously. So it's like a combination between a Diablo, a MOBA, and a MMO, so that makes it a little bit on the weird side. However, it handles very solidly, actually. So the skills are bound to Q and E for standard, and you can move around if you want. You can replace the key bindings if you want, and you can only ever have 2 skills at a time along with your ultimate. So knowing where you're going and what you're going to be doing is definitely crucial in learning how to play the game. However, this game has something that is very interesting in what they're calling the tag-in system, in that where no matter what you're going to do, you always pick 2 characters, not just 1, and you can switch between the characters at any given moment with a 12-second cooldown. This is important because maybe you love playing, let's say, somebody that has very little life but just a lot of damage, and suddenly you're dealing with a boss that has a lot of AoEs. Maybe now you want to switch someone to it doesn't deal as much damage but has more HP and more mobility, and so on and so forth. Or you can even bring along a support character to heal up your friends if they're being a little on the dumb side, which is something a lot of people are doing, and it's actually very welcome. Even if healing is a little, doesn't feel as impactful as it could be, it definitely helps. Now the game has there's plenty of progression systems implemented in it. There is your standard account leveling system. Every time you level up, you get small bonuses and treats and all that other stuff, including the main way to unlock masters, as they're calling them, which is the Solon, which is the nice little big blue thingamajig on the top right next to my name. Then there are weapon and skills leveling. Now this may sound bad, but in order to level up a skill for a character, you have to pay in-game gold that you earn by playing the game. Now there is a PvP component. However, from what I've experienced inside the PvP areas, in order to maintain the MOBA feel, every time you go up a level, you can select one of these upgrades for your skills. Now, the ones you buy outside with in-game gold apply when you're going into PvE content, so there is no sense of imbalance in that he's played more than me and has access to more stuff than me when going into PvP. Other than that, there's also a weapon system that is very similar to what they did in Blade and Soul, in that you gather up certain materials and then you select the master you want to upgrade the weapon, and you can upgrade it in several different ways. The one I use on Poharan is extra damage, extra range, and increased what they're calling heat reduction, which makes it so that I can shoot for longer without going into overheat, which is what I usually choose on her. But this varies from master to master. Some have a longer, faster firing shot because their shots are usually slow. Some have penetrate more targets. Some have a wider projectile. So depending on what you want to do is what you want to take along. Now getting them to level 1 isn't particularly hard. However, getting them past level 2 and level 3 is going to require even harder materials to get. And that's one of the reasons why they encourage you to play a lot. And honestly, when playing the PvE sections, at least, I was having a lot of fun because it was a if you can imagine a World of Warcraft dungeon, but every single boss in the dungeon is an entire dungeon in and of itself. So let's say, for example, what would be relatively... Say a dungeon was usually 20 minutes long in World of Warcraft, and it had 4 bosses. Here it would only be 5 minutes long because you land inside the arena, inside the dungeon per se, you fight to the main boss, and then you're done. It's a 5 to, if at all, minutes at all to take down the boss. And that's one of the things I really like about it. The fact that it's just go in, play a couple games, have fun, and then get out. And really, it's something I was actually looking for that I didn't know about. I used to play a lot of League of Legends, but because the games there require an investment of 30 to 45 minutes of your time, it's just like, oh. And if it becomes being a bad game because somebody left or you're being absolutely destroyed, it's just like, oh, please let me leave. And it's not fun for anybody. However, here, because it's only 5 minutes, it's just like pop in, finish the dungeon, get some loot, maybe go up a level, and then be satisfied and leave. Now, speaking of PvP, that is going to be on another video because I did do an entire session on the MOBA style map. It did have a time limit of 30 minutes, which is nice. It did take us about take me about 27 minutes to finish it because I was playing with only AI bots in order to get a feeling for the map and everything, but I'm going to talk about more about that in another video. Now, one of the things that I find a little, what's it called, that I can't really agree with is the way they're doing skins for champions. Now, there are 2 main ways to acquire skins. There are ones that are bought with C-Coin, which is your standard pay real money and get the skin. And then there's ones that require very specific tokens that unlock very specific range of skins. So let's use League of Legends as another example. Let's say I just want a different color skin. That would be bought with the cheapest skin token that you can make, and it really doesn't take that long to make. But if you want, say, a truly legendary skin like, say, DJ Sona or equivalent, you would have to get a legendary token. Now, the problem with this system is that all these tokens are made with the exact same thing, and it is absolutely random which one you get or if it even works at all. Let's see, the last time I tried it, I converted, I believe, over 160 of the little pieces that make the tokens, and 26 of them were absolute failures, which was crazy when you think about it. Now, they do offer for real life money a item that guarantees the success so that you always get something. However, because it costs in-game money, it's just like, Now, that in and of itself is not bad. However, it can be because every single skin gives you, for I believe 10 or 12 games, a bonus to the amount of gold you get at the end of every dungeon. So a legendary skin will give you anywhere from 900 to 1000 extra gold at the end of a dungeon, while lower tiered skins will give you around 450. Now, this doesn't sound too bad, but considering that without those bonuses you get between 100 and 200 gold after each dungeon, and considering that in order to level up a skill or your weapon the first time you need to pay 500 gold, now you're starting to see what the main grind is. It's get gold, keep upgrading your character, go into more difficult dungeons to get more gold, buy a skin to get more gold, and so on and so forth. Now, so far, the real money store that you can, the things you can buy with your money are limited really only to VIP passes that increase by 10%, which is good. The amount of gold and extra stuff you get at the end of a mission, priority login, and some other stuff that I couldn't really identify during the weekend because there was so few of us. It was really easy to get in. And really, aside from that, I believe that is most of the mechanics taken into account. Now, in order to unlock a master that isn't easily accessible, you have to complete certain challenges. For example, in order to unlock Poharan, you need to run her dungeon, acquire 30 of her eye patches, which can be anywhere from 0 to 5 to 8 between each run. And once you have completed that achievement, then you can buy her with the Solon that I mentioned earlier. Now, this doesn't apply to every single master. Some you can buy with MxM, which is the real life coin, if you just want to play that one. But right now in the alpha that I played, Poharan and Chromid weren't available to be purchasable with MxM. But when the game comes out, if they become purchasable with MxM, I will probably buy Poharan because I have a lot of fun with her. So let's go into talking about the stages, shall we? Now, speaking about the dungeons, I went into at least some 20 different dungeons, and every single one had a absolutely different boss fight at the end of it, which was absolutely crazy. There was a giant pinwheel thing that was surrounded by razors or some things that you had to shoot between the shields it had in order to get to it. It also did some kind of room thingamajig where it went the outer ring and you had to dodge it. Then there's some giant gorilla thing that has some kind of big AoE attacks jumping around and everything. There's also a boss that cuts the power in where you are and hides in the shadows, and you have to reconnect the power in order to make it appear and take more damage. There's also a giant worm that's usually 3 worms, but then when you take it down half HP, it's just 1 worm. There's a giant mech at the top of a skyscraper that's got 2 phases to it. So if that sounds like a large variety of bosses, it's because there is. There's also this giant fat tribal guy that puts fears all over the place. There's a giant sword guy that hurts a ton. So all of these bosses are all very, very different, and when you move up in difficulty, they become pretty tough to take down. But that's one of the reasons why I was enjoying the game so much, is because I was able to choose the difficulty I wanted to do the dungeon in. And because there was no such thing as gear or character levels or anything like that, I felt like I could go in regardless of how many skills or weapons I've upgraded on my character and still contribute. Now, so far, all the ones that I saw were very, very interesting. There was ones that would just go through the dungeon and fight the boss. There was one that started out as a wave-based protect this thing in the center, and that's the one with the giant mech boss at the top of the skyscraper. So all in all of those levels were definitely very interesting. The fact that there is even a Pohoran's level from Blade and Soul, like her entire dungeon is actually there, that was actually pretty amazing for me, because I really enjoyed that fight, and fighting her as her and seeing her use all of her abilities from the Blade and Soul game itself was definitely something nice. So that's something I forgot to mention, is that they are bringing in a lot of characters from their other games into this one, and it makes a lot of sense, because why would you design a character from scratch when you've got a whole lot of different characters already made? And that really is most of my thoughts. So the dungeons are definitely fun and very varied. The bosses are all very interesting and different. The amount of characters you can play is, so far, what I saw was very nice, and there was a definite large amount of characters variety to choose. Anywhere from melee assassins to ranged DPS people to supports. There's even like a giant blobby guy that surrounds your allies to heal them, which is strange. There's a pop singer that launches hearts from her wand. There's even a Indian girl that launches an eagle, which is odd, but whatever. So yeah, character design definitely out there. The music is definitely, I find it interesting. Aside from the tracks in the lobby system, which most people put the same track over and over again, the tracks seem to go well with the level that they are being played in, as you get some lower-ended tribal stuff during the tribal ones, and then in some of the more technologically advanced levels you get some techno or dubstep-ish. There's even some J-pop and some hard rock there. So music-wise, it's definitely got a lot of variety, and that is definitely nice, because you don't want to hear the same soundtrack over and over again. Now, what am I missing? Weapons and skill leveling, I think is fine. Because it doesn't affect PvP, there's no reason that you should feel that you're not qualified to go into PvP. You are. The main mechanics, which are movement, aiming, the skills, and the tag-in system, are definitely fun, especially because you're about to die and suddenly switch out, and suddenly you're completely healed up and you can actually keep fighting. That's definitely nice. The skin system, I still wish you could buy every single skin with real-life money like in League of Legends, as well as unlock them as you progress through the game with the tokens that I mentioned. But I'm not really sure if they're gonna fix that or not, but whatever. And that really is it for this video, so hopefully you find it useful, and look out for the next video where I go into more detail on the MOBA style map, which is definitely interesting, but it has a lot of things that definitely make it a whole lot different from other MOBAs. So I will see you next time.